Having a business that includes fourth-generation leaders is a rare achievement. Research indicates that less than 3% of family-run businesses survive to be led by the fourth generation. In this episode, we're joined by John and Anthony Magliocco, a father and son team who represent the third and fourth generations of the Arrow Linen Supply Company. Both are alumni of the New York Institute of Technology, which adds another unique aspect to the evolution of this 77-year-old company. We will discuss what it's like to work in a multi-generational family business, the keys to thriving in a competitive market, and the significant impact of the pandemic on the company's primary revenue source in the restaurant and hospitality sectors. We'll explore how their education has influenced their leadership styles, their strategies for navigating these challenging times, and the importance of aligning the company's culture and operations to create an exceptional experience for both employees and customers. Additionally, we'll discuss how they're setting the company up for future generations. John, Anthony, thanks for being part of our podcast series.
Good morning, John. Thank you for inviting me.
Awesome.
Good morning, John. Thanks for having us. Very excited.
So, your company, Arrow Linen Supply, has a long history. Can you tell us about the company, how it started, and how it's evolved? And John, why don't you speak first?
Okay. So my grandfather, Ambrosio Magliocco, had started the company. And then my father, who went to law school and got drafted out of the Army, came out of the Army. Then they asked him to help him out in the laundry business, my uncle and my grandfather. So my father, took the challenge and then started growing the business further. Then I have two older brothers, so my father felt that he needed a bigger location. Then he bought a building on Prospect Avenue, which was an old Cascade diaper plant, and that was in the 70s. At that time, when I was probably in my teens, this place was gigantic. We were like, what are we going to do with all this space? And we got involved, and my brothers and I, and we grew the business more. I went to New York Institute of Technology, which helped me out a lot with machinery. So we were the first ones in the food industry to do on the East Coast to go into called CBW, which is continuous batch washing, which helped us save a lot on energy, water, labor. When we started doing that, I just told my father, keep on buying business. And sure enough, we filled up that plant pretty well. And then back in 10 years ago, we built a plant out here in Garden City, New York, and Long Island. And now my sons, who are the fourth generation, Anthony, John, and Joseph, they're in my shoes back then.
Anthony, describe for us the market. So you're primarily in a regional market, you'd characterize it as, and maybe you could tell us about the businesses that you serve.
Yeah, of course. So we're primarily involved in what we call the food and beverage industry in the New York and New Jersey area. And what that encompasses is we purchase textiles and textile needs for food and beverage customers, such as restaurants, catering halls, pizzerias. We rent those textiles to those establishments on a daily, weekly, or bi-weekly basis. That's pretty much what encompasses our industry. As my father said, we're located at Garden City, New York, and we go all the way out to Montauk, up into the upstate area in New York, to mid-Jersey, North Jersey. So that's the market that we cover.
Interesting. I looked up the United States laundry and linen service supply industry, and it's quite a substantial industry. It generates over $20 billion in annual revenues. They're estimated to be over 2,500 companies in the market. Few dominant players like Cintas and Aramark, and the rest typically are local or regional players. But you guys are fairly substantial in terms of your position in the regional market, right?
Yeah, you're right, John. And when you mention those statistics regarding the industry, it's eye-opening for me because I sometimes lose sight on just how big the laundry industry is, the laundry and rental industry is. It goes from supplying workwear to various employees amongst the country on a daily basis. We have to be probably the largest linen supply company in the New York area, in the food and beverage area. In the industry, if you were to add someone in the industry to the New York market's a little tough just because you have a lot of things you're combating. You have the metropolitan area, traffic, and the tough areas to get to service-wise. You also have a very heavy abuse on your product. For whatever the reason, New York tends to be a heavy abuse area with our merchandise, and that causes a little bit different washing processes compared to other companies in the nation. But you also had mentioned, you have your corporate guys like Cintas and Aramark and Alsco. They tend to be larger in the industry. The rest of it, though, you actually see a lot of multi-generational business in the laundry industry. For whatever the reason is, it tends to be a business that is passed on from generation to generation. And, we're just another example of that.
It is fascinating. It's a family business. And one of the things I kept thinking about was, what's the key to surviving and thriving in such a competitive environment?
You got to have a good work ethic. And I always say that athletes and military people always have a good work ethic. And my sons happen to have that. My brothers and I have it. It's just that you refuse to fail. And this type of work, once it gets in your blood, it's in you. You just want to do it. And you wait out in the morning, you like to accept the challenge, and you keep on going.
Right. And John, just to add to that, one thing that my brothers and I are fortunate to have that I feel, some other laundry companies don't have as much of or don't have the benefit of is just the benefit of being a multi-generational business. The accessibility to success and failures over 1947, readily available for us at any time. I could walk 10 feet into my grandfather's office or my father's office and be like, did you ever run into this, and that? What you do, learning from others' mistakes or other successes, you make the attempt that me and my brothers are going to do that much easier because there's so much preliminary research that can be done very quickly. And that's a huge benefit of ours.
Yeah, I can only imagine what the dinner table's like when you guys all get together. I'm sure you don't talk about the business, right?
That's good. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head.
Beyond just the ability to have a good understanding and sort of have it in your blood, I mean, you've got to have what we used to call in my business, in the printing and packaging business, customer intimacy. You really understood who your customers were. You were always listening to them. And you became sort of part of I hate to use the word, part of the fabric of their business, right?
100%. You're definitely right. That is another aspect that we try to focus on. And so on a daily basis, it's just making sure anything we decide to do, whether it's our normal routine or maybe implementing a change in the standing operating procedures, is we have to align the customer, the company, and the employee on a win-win relationship. You always have to focus on those three things, because from my experience and from what I've learned from my father and my grandfather, having those three together successfully on a win-win relationship is where you're going to really strengthen that relationship with your customer. Your employee is going to want to help the customer. The company's going to be benefiting. They'll want to help the customer. And most importantly, the customer feels that they're important and that they're being listened to and that they're being taken care of. So you have to make sure those win-win-wins are aligned correctly. Yeah,
that business alignment, that's got to be a core element within your organizational culture. Can you talk about the culture of your organization a bit?
Culture is important. I like to call it like the most hidden, it's an invaluable return on investment, in my opinion. So you can't really track it. It's very hard to. But without a good organizational culture, making any changes are possible. Turnover can run rampant. You had unsatisfied employees trying to service customers. Your personnel has to be on board with the company's goals. And focusing on that culture has to be done from a leadership standpoint throughout the year. I mean, it has to be done almost on a monthly basis at least. And you really have to be willing to discuss how people are feeling at the workplace. Are there things that need to be changed? Are they being listened to? It's pretty much everything.
Yeah. So, John, myself growing up, and I pretty much passed on the same things that I learned. And pretty much is to get respect from the employees. Number one is that you have to know the job. Each of them been in every department. They've been on trucks. And then after that, follow-up on that was, I said every morning, make sure you go downstairs, say good morning to everybody. At the same time, keep your eyes and your ears open. Because when you do that every day, you're inspecting the machinery and you'll pick up things before the mechanics pick it up. And you can save a lot of money doing that because, a bearing goes or a gear goes or you'll hear something or you'll see something and you notify the mechanics. So you're doing two things. You're getting respect from the employees by saying hello to them, and you're also inspecting all your machinery.
I would imagine a lot of your employees have been with you for a long time. And then also you probably invest a lot in training. I mean, this is not a simple industry to understand and to work through this, not only from the mechanics of the machinery, and you talked about the customer and deliveries, but also from a chemistry standpoint. I would imagine that you're very focused from a technology standpoint, and that requires a lot of education for the employees so that you make quite an investment in them.
Yeah, for sure. Training for various positions takes a minimum of 2 to 3 weeks at least, especially on the service end of things. We just recently went through a software change about a year and a half ago, and now we call them route service representatives or delivery drivers. That training alone of just understanding how the handheld functions, what is the capability that you have at your fingertips to help the customer with their linen needs. Like I said, it takes 2 to 3 weeks at least just to understand that. And then when you get into the washroom area, of like the chemistry, of understanding the chemistry, how the equipment's working, it's tough. And, we make sure that our mid-level management team is constantly discussing where the areas that employee has to improve on, what are some like basic topics that should be spoken amongst the first 2 weeks of employment. And then on top of that, you have all your safety training that's done. I mean, it's a very high environment of moving a lot of things, picking up things, and making sure that everyone's doing that safely and correctly.
Right.
It's constantly spoken about.
Interesting. We had an opportunity to chat early on before the recording today, and I asked you a question, and I was amazed by what you had to go through when it came to the COVID pandemic. And your core industries were so affected. Could you talk about how that impacted your business, and then how you came out of that and what the state of the business is today?
Yeah, of course. And everyone's aware with the COVID pandemic came, the thing that impacted us the most, obviously, were the dining restrictions, when it was simply just no indoor dining and just takeout. And then you had your restrictions that started to change as the pandemic would die down. So you would have 25% dining, 50% dining capacity indoor, and then it might go back down to 25%. Right off the bat, we had saw a dip in 85% of our sales volume. And
I think also we were, what helped us also, John, was that we were very proactive. Right. As soon as we heard that they were going to close dining, we started consolidating all our routes. We consolidated the operations from all the process being in Brooklyn to Garden City, because Garden City is more efficient than Brooklyn.
Yeah, and like my father's saying, we were proactive and focused on expansion and contraction. What are the easiest ways that we were going to be able to adjust to the change in capacity overnight? We had a consolidation to a more efficient plant with newer technology. And then that was the first major consolidation that we did. And then as we started to come back for indoor dining or outdoor dining, we would just make sure that, hey, do we have the space in our most efficient facility possible to take on this capacity? Yes, we do. So we would just continue operating and adjust our routes from there, our service area routes.
Right.
And then, it also came a point where indoor dining came back to 100%, and we were reaching towards full capacity of our Garden City facility. And we were faced with the decision, okay, do we really want to go turn on the Brooklyn facility that isn't as profitable due to the technology and the variable labor needed to process the laundry? And we ultimately decided to say, hey, let's focus on some revenue that we're really not comfortable with where their margins are at. And we decided to let go of some revenue of those customers that we were serving, just so we had capacity in our Garden City facility to take on demand that was coming on.
So the pandemic really made you sort of rethink the business. And by the way, I love the way you glossed over it. Yeah, our revenues fell by 85%.
Yeah. It was insane. I mean, when you see the dip in the graph, you're like, is that real? It was insane.
I can only imagine. So you really had to rethink the business, and thank goodness today, hopefully everything has bounced back very nicely for you. In rethinking that business, sort of changed your direction, I would think.
Yeah, we opened up in Garden City. We had a void in Brooklyn, so we decided to go into the hospitality segment of our industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was in like 2018, right? That 2016 maybe, when we went into the hospitality side of the industry.
Correct. And we both pretty much concentrated on boutique hotels.
Right.
But then, like you said, after when the pandemic hit, we did a study and realized that our revenue per pound wasn't as high in the hospitality than it was in the food and beverage. And the hospitality is a little bit more demanding because they need 7 days a week service. They have merchandise you're washing. They don't want to buy more merchandise.
Right.
So Anthony and myself and my son and my brother and everybody, we decided try to sell that business and just concentrate on the food and beverage.
The hospitality side of things, right? Washing boutique hotel products and supplying them and giving it back to them is a different side of the business rather than the textile rental that we're accustomed to with servicing restaurants and catering halls. While the hospitality work, the boutique hotel revenue, right, it was a good top line revenue, but if you studied the variable expenses needed to process that revenue, the margins just weren't as good as we were getting on the rental. And it didn't make sense to let that take up capacity in our Garden City facility, because we would have had to turn on our Brooklyn facility, less problems. We had to adjust top line revenue down, which then we had to see where our fixed costs were and make sure those were adjusted properly as well. And that's where we're at right now, right? So in Garden City facility, we have about another 20-25% of capacity left on a 48-hour shift. And, there's still room to go to a 60 or a 72-hour weekly shift.
What's also good about that, John, is we're back to our 2019 numbers.
Oh, wow.
We're able to fit that all in Garden City and also have room left over.
Right.
And besides that, we watched for another laundry company, so we hope to have that acquisition soon. But yeah, so far so good. We're probably going to be looking at another facility in the near future.
It's so great to hear that you guys were able to overcome that loss of revenues and actually come out as sort of like a healthier business at this point, right? So let's talk about your experiences at New York Tech and, how your education influenced your careers, your management styles and leadership. And as you might imagine, it's one thing to talk to a father and son graduating from NYIT, but who also work together running a family business is pretty unique. And so I'll ask John, why don't you speak about this first?
So my experience at New York Institute of Technology was a great experience. First, the challenge of graduating, right? I guess one of the benefits I had that my other colleagues didn't have was I didn't have to worry about finding a job. Pretty much my parents said, listen, we want you to get an education, go to school, whatever you want to take. So I was mechanically inclined and I said, okay. So I said, let me go for mechanical technology. I learned a lot there. It's funny because my father went to law school. Now he's in the laundry business. But what he learned in law school also helps him in business today. Same thing with me. What I learned in college at New York Institute of Technology definitely helps me here. I was able to make decisions on machinery. I understood when I spoke to the engineers. It was a win-win.
To hop on that too, I think, one thing, how NYIT kind of influenced me coming to Arrow, ironically, was just when I went to NYIT, when I was a freshman, we were in mid-construction of our Garden City facility. And then we started operating when I was maybe towards the end of freshman year. And the benefit I had was just things that I was learning in class were able to be brought back and experienced in a work environment. So similar to what my dad was saying with, knowing the equipment, I think one of the benefits was, and one of the influences was just I wanted to continue to have that experience of learning something in the classroom and then being able to see it work in a real work environment. NYIT also really taught me my time management skills, right? Because working full time and going to school full time, there wasn't really a lot of time to be wasted. So that was something that I really enjoyed.
I hear you loud and clear on that because, I went back. I was very fortunate to work for a company that would pay for my master's. So working a full-time job, raising a young family, and then going back to college was certainly never easy. So I clearly understand that. For both of you, and again, I'll start with John on this question. Given your business experience, tell me, what are some of the key insights that you can provide for future business leaders?
The most important thing is you got to love what you do. You got to be able to wake up in the morning and say, I can't wait to get to work. That's number one. And then the other thing is that you got to put 200% into it. You can't go half throttle. You got to go full throttle. And the most important thing is just respecting everybody. You got to respect it.
Yep, I agree with that. My business career isn't as long-lived as my father's life.
Right.
I can tell you that you have to know that you're going to be wrong. You have to know that if you're going to be wrong, you need to constantly open your ears and listen to anyone. You have to have an open mind because 10 brains together think better than one. And if you're not keeping your ears open and keeping yourself isolated from others that you're working alongside with, it's going to be a rough battle. And that's one thing that I learned. As countless others, but
I think between the both of you, that's some wonderful insight. And, Anthony, hearing from you, it really is that you need to have that commitment as a team. You work together. And as you said, diverse perspectives oftentimes bring the best answers. So I applaud both of you for that advice. Thank you. And now, here's a final question for both of you. And I'm going to start this time with Anthony. What one word describes who you are?
Oh, one word. Thought about this. I was torn between a few, but I would say that I'm determined. I understand that there's going to be bad days, good days, but I'm determined to have success as a team for the company. Yeah, that's it. You got to be able to, like my dad said, put your head down and keep going and know that you're going to have bad days and good days, but anyway, keep going.
Determination. I love it. John?
I would probably have to say resilient, refuse to let the succeed, must succeed.
Yeah,
those are two great words. I love it from both of you. Hey, thank you so much for being part of our series. Much success to you both. And I know our listeners are going to get a lot out of this. Thanks so much.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Throughout this episode, we heard how working at a family business like Arrow Linen Supply that has a multi-generational leadership team offers access to decades of experience and lessons learned from both successes and mistakes. That base of knowledge enriches their culture and their approach to business. John and Anthony discussed how COVID restrictions impacted their primary markets in the New York hospitality, food, and beverage industry. In the face of an immediate and severe revenue decline, they pivoted, focusing on capacity, efficiency, and profitability. This led to redirecting the company and providing a growing and more profitable revenue base. From a leadership perspective, John discussed the importance of understanding each job and role in the organization. This is why he requires the next generation to have worked or spent time in each department. This becomes the basis for taking time each day to walk through the facility and say good morning to everyone they see, which communicates appreciation and respect for the employee. It is seen as part of what theorists describe as a management by walking around strategy that is a practical way of staying connected with the people in your operations. Anthony talked about creating, changing, or reinforcing processes to align with the company, employees, and customer needs, goals, and challenges. He called it a win-win-win relationship between the organization and its key stakeholders. This philosophy is contained in many contemporary articles that call for creating a company culture that supports goals and objectives aligned with exceptional employee and customer experiences. Both John and Anthony discussed how their New York Tech education informed their approaches to management and leadership. John's degree from New York Tech provided the fundamentals of applied engineering and technology, which he used as the company grew and modernized. Anthony appreciated the utility of classroom lessons at work and immediately saw its applications. Besides classroom learning, attending NYIT while working full-time taught him time management skill. That time was a precious commodity not to be wasted. John's advice for future leaders was to love what you do, be passionate about it, and put 200% into it, and have respect for others. Anthony spoke about the importance of acknowledging that at times you'll be wrong, and that you need to listen, and that 10 brains together think better than one. This reminded me of a quote by the leadership expert Ken Blanchard, who said, "No one of us is as smart as all of us." It speaks about the importance of teamwork and the value of diversity of perspective. Both Anthony and John provided one word that described themselves. For Anthony, he used the word determined, which refers to the characteristic of being resolute in achieving what you set out to do. And for John, it was resilience, the capacity to move forward in the face of adversity and overcome difficulties. Thanks to John and Anthony for sharing their experiences and valuable insights. This podcast is executive produced by John Rebecchi and the New York Institute of Technology in conjunction with the School of Management and the Office of Strategic Communications and External Affairs. Our co-executive producer is Dr. Deborah Cohen, Professor of Marketing at the School of Management. Our social media strategist and producer is Petra Shantaraga, and our audio editor and mixer is Brian Falk from Abacus Entertainment. Special thanks to Professor Ellie Schwartz and John Rolicky from the Office of Development and Alumni Relations for all their support. Until next time.